will be in the original Machine 1 series, and let me talk a little bit about that and how I got the job, and then we'll open it up to questions if you guys have questions about the show or how we did it or any trivia that you might be interested in. When I first came to Los Angeles, I was a stage actor and had done a lot of stage work, but I never had done any voiceover work or any of that type of thing. I had done some radio commercials and stuff like that with my voice, but I never had done any animation. And I signed up with a commercial agent to do commercials. And while I was in his office one day, there was a little side office, and through the doorway I saw this little guy sitting in there, a little mustache on, a little dark hair. And so me being the kind of person I am, nosy, I walked in and I said, "Who are you?" And he said, "I'm Steve Tischerman." And I said, what do you do here? What do you think? He said, I'm the voiceover agent. And I said, "Oh, what's that?" And he said, "Well, you know, like in cartoons or on the radio or on television, if you don't see the person, that's voiceover." And I said, "I could do that." And he said, "Yeah, thank you. The door is right over there. Just go and walk right through it." I said, "No, really, I think I'd be good." And he said, Fine. Make a tape." And seriously, in those days, you guys, we're talking reel-to-reel tapes. This wasn't even cassette time, guys. We're talking a step beyond, Flintstone shit, where you. So I went home and I got this little tape recorder and I made a little demo tape to show him what I could do. For some reason or other, he said, "All right, fine, I'll take a chance on you." And he started, sending me out for auditions. Marvel Stan Lee had come out to Los Angeles with a small crew, and they were going to do this show called Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. And it was the first time Marvel had actually produced something in-house. Before that, like the 60s show, Spider-Man does whatever a spider can. Those were all licensed out to other companies to animate and produce. This was the first time that Marvel was actually going to do something in-house. So this was a big deal, and everybody in town was up for these roles. And I got thrown into the mix, and somehow after the initial audition, the callback, and then the second callback, it was Frank Welker, Kathy Garber, and myself at the mic. And the producer came out and said, "Well, congratulations, this is our team. We'll be starting board in a couple of weeks." And I was like, holy cow. I've never done this before. I've never done animation before. But I've got Frank Welker, the best in the business, standing right next to me. I got Kathy Garber, who's been in the business since she was a kid. Do you know who Kathy Garber is? You guys, she was Firestar in the show. She also had a show called Family Affair in the 60s where she was Sissy. She was like the teenage daughter. She's also, she's in the 10 Commandments. You know the movie where they're pushing the blocks of stone and stuff? She's this little girl with her little dolly or something like this. So she's been in the business forever, so I'm like, this is cool. I got her on one side of me, Frank on the other, I'm gonna be fine. A couple weeks go by. A friend of mine bumps into me and she says, "Oh, I'm sorry about Spider-Man." And I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "Well, I was a guest actor on the first episode and you weren't doing the part." And I said, "What?" The producer came out and told me. I called my agent and he said, "Yeah, they got the final audition tapes with you and Frank and Kathy. The network decided they didn't like you after all, and they replaced you with someone else." And that was my reaction too. I was like, oh man. But and in this business, you learn to sort of take these things as they come. You have to kind of develop a thick skin, and you kind of have to just constantly be looking to the future, because if you're looking to the past where all the parts you missed and all the failures that you had to face, you'll never exist. So I was philosophical about it. I said, this is my first shot. At least I came close to it. So I got a future ahead of me. This is going to be fine. Another 2 weeks goes by, and my voiceover agent, you remember the little guy in the room, Steve Tischerman, calls me up and goes, "You're doing Spider-Man." And I go, "No, another guy." And they said, "No. They got the recordings back from the first session. They don't like that guy after all. They're back to you." So I'm like, "Hey, that's great." And then I realized I'm going to be in the studio all by myself because they have all the other tracks. They're just going to drop my lines in. I won't have Frank. I won't have Kathy. And now I'm terrified. Because I got to be in there all by myself. I've never done animation before. Yes, I studied acting. Yes, I went to college. I went to a fine arts college. I have a degree. I'll show it to you if you like. It's a Bachelor of Arts degree. It says I'm qualified to work in this business. But I had never done this before, and I was simply terrified. And our director, the voice director, Alan Dinehart, was an ex-Marine. I swear to God, you guys, when I walked out of that first session, I was sweating. I was soaked to the bone. Somehow I got through it, and they kept me as the voice of Spider-Man. Now that's all leads into the next thing that happened was the auditions for Transformers. So this was the second time that I had gone out for a series. And I went to the initial audition, and what they do is with animation, as I'm sure some of you know, they have character sketches, and they have a few lines of dialogue that they ask you to record so they can get an idea of what you might sound like as that character. And Wally Burr, who was our director, was running the auditions, and he would sort of move you into different areas. He would say things like, you know, rough him up a little bit, make him a little more streetwise, bring your tone down a little bit, or pull back here, do whatever. And finally, by the end of it, you will have sort of created a character, and then it goes to the producers and all of those people who make the decisions, and then decide. Usually they'll have a callback to see, you know, if they're really sure they want you for that part, and usually after that, it's decided that you've got the part. So I went to the audition, the initial audition, and I read for a bunch of stuff. I think I read for Ratchet, and I think I read for some of the Decepticons, and Bumblebee was one of the ones I read for. So I got a call back to come back and read again for Bumblebee. And I was sitting in the waiting room. This is a happy story. This is not like the Spider-Man story. This is a happy story. So I'm sitting in there studying, and they want to read me for Bumblebee, and they want to also see if I can do Spike as well, because I had, you know, all the young voice guys, you know, the tenor stuff, not the Frank Welker or the Peter Stahl. That hurts. I don't know how he does that. Anyway, I'm sitting in the lobby waiting, and Wally came out, and I said, "Hey, Wally," and he said, "Well, it must be nice to know that you've already got a part." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, they want you for Bumblebee. They just want to see if you can do Spike as well." And I was like, hey, you know, in the movies where like something great happens in the Hallelujah chorus, I've already got the part. Well, ultimately, they decided that they didn't want me to do Spike as well because there was so much between Bumblebee and Spike that they wanted a little bit of a separation on the voices. So the wonderful Corey Burton got the part of Spike, and the rest is history. So that's really how I wound up on this show. And you know, I've said this before at conventions. We had no idea at the time that this thing was going to be as timeless as it turned out to be. That it's going to have the kind of legs that it has. That it remains so popular, and a new generation. Thank you, right here. Hi. I like your outfit. It's real nice. So there's new generations coming up watching our original stuff that we did in the 80s, and it's really gratifying to all of us. You know, and I've talked to a lot of the cast members, Frank and Peter and Michael Bell and all these other guys, and everybody is just kind of, in addition to being amazed at the kind of legs this thing has had, also just so gratified at the reaction that you guys have given us about, you know, how much this was a part of your childhood. And I mean, I've had people come up to me in wheelchairs and say things like, you know, I had a really rough childhood and you helped me get through it. And that, I mean, I start to tear up when I hear that kind of stuff. I mean, that's, as an actor, you think, well, yeah, I'm an actor. You know, I'm not curing cancer, I'm not doing brain surgery, but to hear something like that from someone is really effective. And it's really gratifying to know that you've actually been part of a career that actually really may have meant something to a few people. So I appreciate you guys so much for your fandom and your loyalty. So that's pretty much where I'm at. Do we want to do like a Q&A sort of thing? Does anybody have questions or anything that they'd like to ask? Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Now, you were in the Pound Puppies cartoon, right?
I was.
You worked with Nancy Cartwright, didn't you?
I did indeed.
What's she like?
She's a bitch.
You're expecting Bart Simpson for 30 years.
No, she's terrific. This was pre-Bach, and yeah, Nancy. I've known Nancy since that was in I think we recorded the show in '86, and I think it was premiered in the the fall of '87. So I've known Nancy forever. She's a doll. She's great. Most of the people, like 99.99999% of the people that I've worked with in voiceover are wonderful people. You know, generous, kind, giving, you know, no ego involved, generally. The best people in the business. I've worked with a lot of actors in my time, and I found the voiceover community is by far the most welcoming, the kindest, the most giving of all the talents that I've ever worked with. Also, the on-camera stuff that I've done, the bigger the celebrity, the Dick Van Dykes, the Bob Newharts, all of the great people that I've worked with, the big stars, are the finest people you're ever going to meet. The real a-holes are the ones who are like the D-list celebrities, you know, who haven't quite made it. Those are the ones that will give you a lot of grief. The really great, big star actors are really sweet people. So you should know that when you watch people like
Kathy Griffin. Kathy Griffin.
Yeah, let's not go there. Never worked with Kathy. I'm sure she's a lovely woman, but you know, she does have her issues. Anyway, I hope that answered your question. Nancy's a great person, and I ran into her. We were at there was a SAG event that last year, and I saw her. And I hadn't seen her in a long time, and so I mean, obviously, the success she's had with The Simpsons is remarkable. I read for that show, actually. They, you know, when you were in the voiceover community, when they were casting The Simpsons, everybody read for that show. God, I wish I got them, so. You know how much money those people
It's raining on them.
It's insane. Anyway, yes, Nancy, lovely woman. Anybody else? Yes.
So in the '86 movie, there's 2 scenes with adult language, we'll say.
Yes, indeed.
You were a part of one of those scenes.
Yes, I was.
What did you guys think about that at the time?
Well, first of all, let me tell you this. I wasn't recording with the rest of the cast for the movie. Back in those days, in the '80s, there was so much animation going on because every toy company in the universe wanted a 65-episode animated series to back up their toy line, so there was so much work going on. We were going from session to session to session. I think I must have not been available the day that they did the main recording, so I recorded my lines just by myself in the studio. I was told by Flint Dilley, who was the head writer and one of the producers, that they inserted that the one little bit of language because they wanted to get a PG rating so that they wouldn't think it was just a little kids movie so that teenagers would want to go. But that's what he told me. I'm not sure whether that's true or not, or whether that's accurate. I've also heard that Corey improvised it. I don't know really which of that is true. I would trust Flint more than anyone else, I think. But I'm curious. I was aware of the one little curse word that slipped through. Is there a second one?
Ultra Magnus.
What is he?
He said open, damn it, open.
Open, damn it, open! I wasn't aware of that. I just knew the one where Spike said, what, hell or?
Oh, no,
yeah.
He said shit.
Yeah.
Don't use this type of language. It's wrong. It's wrong. Look at you guys. You're just as cute as you can get. So that's what I know about that.
The funniest thing about it was then when the movie came out on video cassette, they took those words out, and we debated for years whether or not we really heard.
That's interesting. I did not know that either. Yeah. So that's the story that Flint told me. So that's I don't know whether that's accurate or not.
Thank you.
Sure. Yes.
In season 4 in the cartoon,
Yeah.
when they went from bone to gold bud, do you have a problem with that, or you like, just change what it looks like, just keep it on payroll?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part because I was busy. It was nauseous. say the question again.
Okay, back to season 4 when it changed Bumblebee to Goldbug.
Yeah.
Did you have a problem with it, or not so much, changing what it looks like?
I didn't like it at all. I didn't like it at all. I mean, I spent 3 seasons doing Bumblebee, being the little yellow Volkswagen, and suddenly they dip him, you know, in gold, and now he's got a different name. And it's strictly a move by Hasbro to sell more toys, because they'd sold all the Bumblebees that they could sell, so now they can sell more because, you know, they've got the same character basically, but a different sort of toy form. So it was a crass money grab as far as I was concerned. And I thought, you know, what are you going to do next? Dip him in chocolate? He's going to be Choco Bug now? It didn't seem right. And so they they went back to the original version, you know, after a while. So it was just, no, I didn't like it at all. No, I didn't like it at all. But I have, we have no say in these things. These are things that are handed down from above, from levels above us. Yes. Yes.
You worked in Transformers Devastation, right?
Yes.
How did it feel reuniting with Peter Cullen, Michael Bell, all those other guys?
Well, I don't know if you're aware of this or not, but in video games, the voices are all recorded separately. It's not like it was in the old days. In the old days, we had a room full of crazy people, comedians, actors, musicians, like Scatman Brothers, great musician. It was crazy. Those sessions were so wonderful, and it's amazing we ever got any work done because of the joking and the practical jokes and all that kind of stuff. But in video games, it's just you in front of the microphone with the director and your script and a description of what's happening, and so there's none of that camaraderie feeling. It's all. I mean, I knew that Greg and Frank and Peter, were going to be involved in the cast, but I never even saw them.
Wow.
The only time I see them anymore is at conventions. That's the only time I see Peter and Frank and the rest of the cast. So that's how. It's not obviously, it's not nearly as much fun. Plus, it's grueling work because, as you know, with these video games, depending on the choice you make, a different thing happens. So you have to say, don't go there. Oh, you're going there? Uh-oh, you shouldn't go there. Uh-oh, we went there. It's just line after line after line after line, and they're 4-hour sessions. And by the end of it, they save the screaming and yelling and the dying until the end, thankfully. But you're wiped out by the end of one of those sessions. So yeah, not nearly as much fun, and a lot of new animation is done that way too. The really good stuff, like the Family Guy stuff, and the anybody watch Rick and Morty? I love Rick and Morty. They're awesome. Those are all done in groups, and they must have a great time. In fact, I've alerted my agent that they're doing 70 more episodes. They gotta have something for me.
70 more episodes. It's going to be over 40 years.
I know it's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome.
I think it's just going to be.
Justin Roiland does Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
What a pig. Anyway, yes.
I actually have two. A friend of mine couldn't be here today.
Okay.
So he was wondering, did Stanley have an active role in production of Spider-Man Amazing Friends, or did he just come in when nobody else was?
No, he was very involved. As I said before, this was the first time that Marvel had produced something in-house. So Stan came out with a small staff. They set up an office in Van Nuys, California. And in fact, I have a wonderful picture. It's at home of the wrap party, where it's Frank Welker, June Foray, one of the producers, Dennis Marks, and Stan Lee behind us all with like this. And it's one of my prized possessions. But he was very involved in that show. Now he became less and less involved as they went on. But he also would come into the studio then and record introductions and the stuff at the end of the episode. So I would see him from time to time coming into the studio, and it was always great to see Stan, because Stan. The last time I saw him personally was when Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions, the video game, was done. They brought me down to Comic-Con. Josh Keaton and I went down together to do a panel, and Stan was on the panel, and he was in his 90s, and that man had more energy than 4 people that I know. And God rest him, brilliant man. I mean, say what you will about him. Yes, I know, he didn't create Spider-Man by himself. Ditko had a great, Ditko's design alone was instrumental in making that character live. But, I mean, what a genius for publicity and for keeping Stan's soapbox. I don't know how many of you have read some of the older comics where Stan was really involved in the writing and stuff like that. Some of the stuff is brilliant. I went back and read the first 100 Spider-Man comic books, and some of the stuff is just brilliant, what he was doing. So, yes, he was very involved. Long, digressive answer to an easy question.
Well, that's all right. He'll love it.
Okay.
The other one is, how do you feel about Bumblebee, compared to the Bumblebee movie compared to the 80s one?
You mean the latest Bumblebee movie?
Yeah.
Well, I haven't seen it, but I'm pleased that they went back to the Volkswagen.
Yes.
I'm pleased that it apparently has a lot more heart and humor than the Michael Bay movies had. And to me, Bumblebee was always the little guy, the little Volkswagen, you know, and to make him a muscle car just didn't make any sense to me. And I know some of you probably are fans of the movies, that's fine. Everybody has, you know, their preferences as far as the show goes. But to me, he should always be the small guy. So to go back to the Volkswagen, I thought was a great idea. And to add the heart, and apparently it was like, you know, it was a boy and his dog sort of movie, you know, or a girl and her dog. So yes, I very much approve, although I have not seen it. I might watch it on the plane back to LA because I saw it was available. So I got volume.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else? Yeah, I'll win back.
How do you feel that Bumblebee has become such an essential part of Transformers from when the G1 had so many characters, and most stuff nowadays has about less than 10 on the Autobot side, but Bumblebee's almost always in that group?
Yeah, I think so. When we first started, there were, I think, 12 of us in the cast. I think there were 12 of us. And as you know, as the show went on, there were more and more and more, because it was based on a toy line, so the more characters, the more toys Hasbro could sell. So there's always that sort of, you know, retail aspect behind it. But at the beginning, there were I think 12 of us: Neil Ross and Ken Sampson and Scatman and Peter and Frank, of course. Jack Angel, who's still around, and I just saw not too long ago in Burbank. Jack is like 197 years old. He's still. What am I talking about? I'm 68 now. I was 33 when we did this show. It seemed like it was yesterday. It wasn't. My back hurts. I got some pain in my pants. It's getting old, it's just. It's not for the faint of heart. If you can avoid it, don't do it.
Later.
Yeah, exactly. That's another thing I'll talk about this book a little bit that I had written, Bumblebee and Me, which some of you I think have probably read.
Yes.
You know, when we started, it was a relatively small group of 12. By the time we got into like the second and third season, I mean, there were 30 actors involved in any one episode. And it became so crowded in the recording studio that Wally had to have an intercom system installed where you would wait out in the lobby until your scene came, and then he would call you over the intercom to come in and do your scene, and whoever was finished doing their scene would go out because there were so many people involved. But to me, that core cast will always be the most important. And obviously, I'm prejudiced that way, but you know, to me, the ones who began it, to me, are always the core cast.
The founding members.
Yes, thank you very much for that. You saw me struggling and you jumped in to help. Anybody else? Yes.
In Bumblebee and Me, described Chris Latta.
Yes.
And I was just curious, you know, if he's still with us today, do you think he would have, because it's been such a pleasure meeting all the voice actors all these years later, do you think he would have hit cons, or?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would give my right arm to meet that man.
You may one day. I believe in the afterlife. I talked about Chris a little bit in the book. He was a real sweetheart. He had a lot of demons inside him. He really did. He was running fast and hard. He was a user of many different substances at that time, and his energy level was incredibly high, partly due to some of the substances he was using. But he had a lot of demons in him, and it was clear that he was not going to go the distance. He was really running. He was running hot and hard, and so it didn't surprise me when I heard that he had passed. It saddened me, but it didn't surprise me. It didn't surprise me. But yes, I'm sure he would. I'm sure he would. Deep down, he always dressed completely in black, his motorcycle boots on, and he looked like somebody, if you met him in an alley, he'd want to kill you. Motorcycle, I mean, sweetest guy you'd ever met. So, as I said, like the rest of the voiceover community that I've been associated with, sweet, generous, wonderful, welcoming human being. And, God love him. I wish he was still with us. Anybody else? And Scatman too. I wish Scat was still with us. Oh, Scatman was so awesome. Scatman, another thing I talk about in this book, and some of you read it know this, he would bring his guitar to sessions. And as I said, in the second and third season, as it went on, there were so many people. Many of us were out in the lobby waiting to go in. And Scatman would be out there playing his guitar and Scat singing. And I remember thinking at the time, they're paying me to do this? I mean, I'm getting to see the great Scatman brothers this far away from me, Scat singing, and I'm getting paid $300 and some odd to do this. It's like, this doesn't make any sense. I want to pay you. So yes. Yes, anybody else? Yes.
Did you ever have one particular character that kind of knowingly you knew it was going to be a pretty full day? Was there one particular character that...
You mean in this show?
Or any show, just that heard the voice and kind of going like, maybe not quite as excited to do this character.
Yeah, there were a few because, as I said, there were so many series going on at the time, and I guested on tons of them. Occasionally, I would go in. The thing that I liked the least was if I was in an episode and it had like 4 lines, in the second act towards the end, you just got to sit and wait, and I hated that waiting part. Waiting to do the part. That was great to watch everybody work, and that was all fine and everything. But that was my least favorite part. I never felt like really that, I hate to do that character. That's awful. Nah, because an actor, you find something to like in whatever character you're working on. You need to, or you can't find any connection, and you need some kind of connection with the character that you're working with. So that wasn't a problem for me. It was always a problem, though, when I had 2 lines at the bottom of the show, and I had to sit and wait to do my part. And by the time, and you got to keep your energy somehow, you got to sort of keep your engine sort of running low. You can't shut it off completely, or you'll be totally screwed by the time time comes to do your part. So you got to keep it. You got to keep running, and then you got to amp it up when it's time to do your thing, and then amp it back down. So that's the part that I never really liked in this business. Although this business, the voiceover part of show business is the best part of all. I mean, you don't have to bathe. You don't even have to wear clothing. I just recorded, I'm doing recording books at home. I recorded an entire book with no pants. And I said to my wife, do you realize I've been in my boxer shorts the entire time I've recorded this novel? I was like, yeah, put some pants on the grocery store. Yeah.
Has there ever been a line in any of the things you did that made you just fall over laughing?
Wow. No, but I'll tell you what, some of the stuff that was said in the sessions between made me fall over laughing. The recording sessions for Transformers and many of the other shows were just crazy because, as I said, you've got a room full of performers. So everybody's trying to outdo one another and out-top one another. And you've got Michael Bell making Peter Cullen laugh, and Frank making... Peter Cullen's the greatest audience of all. You can pull your pants down and Peter will go to pieces over you. So there's all these people trying to make somebody else laugh, and God help him, Wally Bird trying to keep everything under control and get the show done was really something to see. But mostly the sessions were just so much fun that I didn't pay much attention to the script. Didn't bother with that. Get in there and have some coffee and see my friends. Anybody else? Yeah. Oh, wait, let me get somebody who has this. Yes.
So then, with that,
Are
did
you
you?
filming this?
Yes.
Hi.
Let me zoom
Am
back
I in
up.
focus?
Actually, you are.
Okay,
You're
good.
just really zoomed in.
I love you all.
Thank you for that. But no,
And I want that on YouTube immediately.
geeky gamer gal. But no,
Yes.
in that, since you were having so much fun, and even though you may not have been paying too much attention to the script, was there any moment with the script that really struck out to you as, oh my God, this was a great moment, I will be hanging around,
Yeah.
or this will be hanging out in the ether forever?
Yeah, there was. The Transformers episodes, I mean, it's basically, there's lots of battles going on between the Autobots and Decepticons, so there's much action, a lot of action. My favorite parts, and most of the actors' favorite parts, are the quiet scenes between those battles. When you're sitting, when Bumblebee and Spike had a really special relationship, and I always enjoyed those scenes. Plus, Corey was such a good actor and so great to play with and play off of, that I enjoyed those moments. And there were moments too with the quiet moments between Bumblebee, the father figure. He respected him, and he just his leadership qualities were so impressive to Bumblebee. There were moments that we had some small dialogue scenes between us that were always fun for me to, and I always enjoyed those a lot. So yeah, there were those moments, and I think they met for some of your favorite moments too, where things just get quiet and it's not a lot of yelling and shooting and jumping and stuff, right? Did you get that?
Yep.
Who else? Yeah.
Yes, was there any interaction that you wanted Bumblebee to, with another character that you felt that they didn't have enough time with each other or something like?
Well, no. The scripts are all we're all pretty much. Here's how the day would work. At least at the beginning, they used to be 8-hour days. Now, the Screen Actors Guild has provisions for how an actor is used, and sort of the timing and stuff like that. An 8-hour day generally is the on-camera job. So if you go to a film set or a TV, or if you're filming a TV show, it's an 8-hour day. And there are mandated sort of breaks along there, and a lunch, and a mandated this. And if you go into overtime, then that's extra, and all of that sort of thing. It was all designed for on-camera. We come into the voiceover business now. When doing animation, it's still an 8-hour day. That's a long time to spend on basically 22 minutes of animation, because once you take out the commercials and the introductions and the end credits, it's about 22 minutes of actual show. 8 hours is an incredibly long time to spend recording 22 minutes of show. So, and Wally Burr used to take huge advantage of this. So how our day would start was we'd do a table read first. There was a table at the back of the recording studio, and everyone would sit around the table. And Wally had the storyboards, which are basically, I'm sure you know, like a comic book. It's almost like a comic book that shows the action, visually. And he had studied that the night before, or however he had studied it. So he'd let us know, well, he's 50 feet away, and this is what's happening here, and he's in desperate straits, so you have to go blah, blah, blah. So we do the whole read. So that would take a couple hours to go through that. We'd take a break, and then there'd be like 6 hours of recordings. And for guys like me who are working, I'm working up in here, so it's not that bad. It's not hard. But Peter, there's blood on the glass by the end of the time Peter is. These guys they were completely exhausted by the end of these huge sessions. There was an animation strike in 1987, and part of the reason was we wanted a shorter day, a 4-hour day, and we got that. Because you don't need 8 hours to record 22 minutes of animation. So I forgot your question. I just went off on a whole thing.
Totally good. I was about to say.
Still with me?
Yep.
Oh yeah, my question was there like a character that you wanted Bumblebee to interact more with?
Oh yeah. So anyway, I guess the point that I was getting to was the scripts were pretty well set. So there wasn't much room for us to do. There wasn't really much ad-libbing at all going on in that show. Wally had pretty tight control over what was happening, and we stuck pretty much to the script. Occasionally somebody would throw something in that might work. Flynn and the rest of the producers would be in the back of the room with the recording engineer and Wally, and if they liked something, they you could see.
Oh.
And you'd always hate to see that, because where they're going like this, they're wondering if they're saying, "Going to fire him." So occasionally, something would come in, but they pretty much stuck to the script in those days. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Have I answered? Oh, yeah.
What audiobook did you record without pants?
Yeah, you want to get it. It's called, I don't think it's out yet. It's called, I just did it. It's called, no, it's
Could be a contest.
Big Little Lies. No, that's a TV show. I can't remember. I'll think of the name. I'll tell you. You want to get it, but you want to use it. Here, let me give you something.
Man, his wife will kill you.
You met my wife. Love them. Anybody else? Yeah.
If you had to tell one story about working with Frank, what story would you tell?
There's a few. Okay, here's one. I'm pillaging my own book, but Frank Welker, I don't think I've ever seen Frank wearing a pair of actual shoes. he wears only sandals that I've seen. Now, I'm sure he cold climbs. He's worn shoes which actually cover your feet, but Frank always wore sandals to sessions. And I remember reading an article in some magazine that said when a male is reaching climax, his toes involuntarily curl like this. And I remember watching Frank doing Megatron. His toes were curling like this. Frank really enjoys his work. Anybody else? Yes.
So in the movie, Bumblebee's off in Unicron when Optimus dies.
Mm-hmm.
We know the character idolized Optimus.
Yeah.
How do you? And we never see Bumblebee
No.
react to the death.
You don't see Bumblebee through most of the movie.
No.
At the beginning, and then in the big dance number at the end.
Yeah.
Because it's not a new toy.
Right.
Well, yeah. Well, and they had Leonard Nimoy and Ira Idle and guys like that.
So in your head, what would Bumblebee's reaction have been?
Oh, he'd be devastated. He'd be devastated.
He essentially lost his dad.
Well, yeah, it'd be like losing your father. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was a huge part of the way I tried to portray him, was his admiration for his leader, for Optimus, the father figure, as I said before, the ultimate general. And Peter said this before too. He approached that role with rather than a real hard come at it. He came from his heart. And Peter had said before he based the voice on his brother, who had died prematurely, and he loved his brother. Obviously, he and I have talked about this at length. He loved his brother very much, and was devastated when he passed. And to me, the core of that character comes from that love that he has for his brother. So you see that kind of quiet strength. In addition to the generalship, when he's giving orders and stuff, you see that quiet strength inside Optimus, which is really quite affecting, I think. And it's probably what won him the role in the first place, because I'm sure many of the other actors approached it as a real, you do this, and I'm the general, and you can do this. And Peter came at it from, I think, a much different angle. And it really, obviously, it's worked for how many years now? I can't see anyone. Yeah, I can't see anyone else as Optimus. Sorry for John Vickers.
Forgot about Gary Shaw.
Well, okay, different iterations. I get that. I get that. But Peter will always be, I think, for all of us, the ultimate.
Yeah. And they keep putting him in cold storage. I'm pretty sure they're putting him in cold storage because he's not working.
Peter? Yes, he sleeps in a hyperbaric chamber. Anybody else? Yes.
Even though you didn't get much screen time in the movie, are you glad that you just didn't get killed off like a lot of the other?
Yeah, I was really happy. Yeah, except as we've discussed before, nobody in cartoons or comic books ever dies. I mean, did Optimus die? I mean, yes, he died. He's back.
They killed Superman.
Yeah,
next week.
Yeah, I mean, they killed. I can't name how many different superheroes and stuff have died along the way, and then they've somehow risen from the dead. So, yes, but I was at the time relieved that I wasn't one of the ones that had been thrown onto the junk pile. And I think Hasbro made some critical errors in that. I've heard it from fans too. You didn't need to do that. I mean, it's like a 7-year-old kid watching this thing that they've come to love this character, and they got to watch him turn gray, as he dies. I mean, that's a pretty heavy emotional hit for a little kid to take. And I think it was a mistake on Hasbro's part. I mean, if you're older, I think you can sort of get through that and understand that. But to me, I didn't care for that whole idea of killing off so many characters. And it was once again strictly because of the economics. They wanted to move those toys off the shelves and move the new ones on. And that was one aspect of this show that I really didn't care for, was that it was based on a toy line, and that was always in the background. Now the shows were done excellently, the scripts were done well. The acting was, I thought, excellent, in most cases. But that part always bothered me, because that was always lurking in the background. That retail portion of what we were dealing with. So, but yes, I was relieved, and still am. Yes.
I was wondering, could you do a bit of dialogue between me, Spider-Man, Cool?
Depends. Do you got $300? Anybody? Yeah.
If you were to do like a eulogy of Optimus Prime, would you do it? Like if you were pay to do a eulogy about this time, we can do it.
Yeah.
Since you mentioned how.
Do you want to take up a collection? 'Cause I'll-
You mean that's? Well, you want the panel.
There are people here that want to make Bumblebee cry.
It's called Fate Changer. That's the name. It just came to me. Called Fate Changer. It's a chick lit fantasy thing about this girl that goes back in time to San Francisco in 1915 or something. I don't think it's out on Audible. It will be soon. That was the book that I did with no pants on. I had some undercoat. Can you say that to the judges?
The main thing is life will kill you.
Huh?
You're digging the whole deeper.
I know. I tend to do that. Anybody else have a question? Have I plumbed the depths of your questionability? All right, so we can wrap this thing up. I wanted to mention one thing. Some of you have read this. Some of you have bought a copy of this book and have read it. And it's a lot of fun. It's got a lot of the stuff that we talked about today in it. I brought books with me for this convention. We sell them for $40 autographed. But what I'd like to do is for just you guys who have attended, who've been kind enough to attend this panel, I'd like to make a special deal with you guys. If you come to the table and tell me the secret phrase, which I will give you in just one moment, I'd like to make this offering to you for half price for $20 instead of $40 autographed. But you must say the magic phrase to me, and the phrase will be, "Till all are one." May we repeat that so we know?
Till all are one.
Right, so if you'd like to purchase a book at half price, say that to me, and I'll be happy to do that. Thanks for being here. I know you guys appreciate us. We appreciate you a whole bunch. So thanks for being here. I love y'all.